There's a lost human species hiding in your DNA and you've never even heard of it. In this video, we break down 10 takeaways from Joe Rogan's explosive interview with ancient DNA expert Beth Shapiro. One of them will change how you see yourself. Takeaway 1. Hidden species inside our DNA. Beth Shapiro explains that every living person carries small pieces of DNA from ancient humans who were not Homo sapiens. Genetic studies show that 2 to 5% of the code in most people comes from Neanderthals, while people with roots in Asia and Oceania often have extra fragments from a mysterious group called Denisovans. Scientists are now finding signals of other human relatives that have no fossil name yet, which means an unknown species has also mixed with us. This discovery came from comparing millions of tiny DNA letters and spotting patterns that do not match any skeleton ever dug up. Beth says it feels like a crime scene where the suspect left fingerprints but no body. Joe Rogan reacts by asking if that means we are all hybrids, and Beth agrees, adding that identity is more tangled than school books suggest. For example, researchers built a family tree from a single finger bone in Siberia and proved the owner was neither Neanderthal nor modern human, but something new that still lives on in our blood. The takeaway is that the label human is a wide club, and you are already a silent member of more than one branch. Now let's move to the next takeaway. Takeaway 2. Secrets drawn from ancient bones. Beth Shapiro describes how fossils tell only half the story because most creatures never become stone. DNA fills the gaps by revealing the hidden family ties of bones that look alike. In her lab, she drills a dusting of powder from a tooth, then uses chemicals and clean room suits to avoid mixing her own cells with the sample. The fragments are tiny, so scientists copy them millions of times with a process called PCR, which Beth calls a genetic photocopier. Once the code is read, computers line up the pieces like a giant puzzle. This method showed that some supposed dinosaur DNA was actually fried chicken contamination, a blunder that taught everyone to be extra careful. For example, the first high-quality Neanderthal genome came from blending powder from several ribs, which proved that early humans and Neanderthals had children together. The lesson is that DNA is the ultimate witness even when the skeleton is broken. Now let's move to the next takeaway. Takeaway 3. Lost cities and living tribes. Joe Rogan and Beth Shapiro move from labs to jungles as they discuss civilizations swallowed by nature. Satellite laser scans of the Amazon revealed geometric grids and raised roads that once belonged to millions of people long before Europeans arrived. These societies collapsed after disease and conquest, so the forest grew back and hid the evidence. Meanwhile, uncontacted tribes still roam the deep Amazon and fiercely protect their land. Joe shares the story of explorer Paul Rosoli, who once realized he was being hunted by such a group and barely escaped. Beth says their DNA could hold clues about ancient population movements because these communities may carry rare genetic lines that disappeared elsewhere. For example, scientists studying the Rampasasa people on Flores Island hoped to find a link to the tiny hobbit humans, but discovered a different ancestry instead, which shows how many surprises remain. The segment reminds viewers that both ruins and living cultures can rewrite history. Now let's move to the next takeaway. Takeaway 4. Birth of ancient DNA science. Beth Shapiro recounts how the field began when chemist Kary Mullis invented PCR while driving on an LSD-inspired road trip. Before that breakthrough, experts thought DNA vanished soon after death. Once the tool existed, researchers rushed to test everything from Egyptian mummies to mastodon bones. Beth jokes that early work claimed to sequence dinosaur genes, but later matched them to a modern chicken meal. These stumbles pushed scientists to build clean labs with filtered air and full-body suits that look like virus wards. Beth left academia to become chief science officer at Colossal Biosciences because she wanted to turn these methods into real animals, not just papers. For example, by reading direwolf DNA from a 72,000-year-old skull and a 13,000-year-old jaw, her team found the gene set that controls body size and coat color. The takeaway is that a wild idea became solid science in just a few decades. Now let's move to the next takeaway. Takeaway 5. How de-extinction really works. Beth Shapiro tells Joe that cloning a mammoth straight from frozen tissue will never happen because the DNA is too damaged. Instead, researchers identify key mammoth traits such as cold-resistant hemoglobin and thick underfur, then edit those traits into the genome of an Asian elephant, the closest living relative. CRISPR cuts the elephant DNA at precise spots and swaps in the ancient letters like a find and replace tool in a document. The resulting embryo is still mostly elephant, but carries enough mammoth code to handle Arctic life. Beth stresses this is not science fiction and points to successful edits that already changed coat color and fat metabolism in lab animals. For example, her team produced direwolf pups by adding just a handful of ancient mutations to gray wolves, which made them larger and paler than any modern pack. Viewers learn that de-extinction is selective breeding at lightning speed, guided by a 30,000-year-old instruction manual. We're halfway through the video. Thanks for sticking with us. If you're enjoying it, hit the thumbs up and share it in your WhatsApp groups. If you'd like to support us, please tap the thanks button below. It helps us keep making great content. Drop a comment and don't forget to hit subscribe for more. Now let's continue with the video. Takeaway 6. Mammoth meat and direwolf fashion. Joe Rogan is amazed when Beth Shapiro explains how ancient DNA can even predict an animal's look. Pigmentation genes revealed that the two direwolf samples both carried a mutation linked with light fur, similar to Arctic foxes. Artists had always painted direwolves reddish-brown, but the genome says they were probably pale, which makes sense for an Ice Age hunter. Beth adds that mammoth DNA shows they had unique blood that stayed fluid at freezing temperatures, much like a fish that survives in polar seas. This trait is vital if a future mammoth wants to stroll across Siberian snow. For example, when her team edited wolf embryos, they used these lessons to decide which coat genes to activate to match the ancient blueprint. The point is that genes act like a time travel camera, capturing colors and adaptations long after fur and flesh have rotted away. Now let's move to the next takeaway. Takeaway 7. Building life in a gene shop. Beth Shapiro walks Joe through the laboratory pipeline. First, scientists design the edits on a computer, then synthesize tiny DNA fragments, then insert them into stem cells with electric pulses. Those stem cells grow into embryos, which are implanted in a surrogate mother of the closest living species. Each step brings technical hurdles like immune rejection and off-target cuts. So teams run hundreds of tests before a single pregnancy. Beth mentions a real medical victory where doctors fixed a lethal metabolic defect in a newborn called baby KJ by editing his own liver cells inside his body. She says, conservation work borrows those same tools to rescue animals facing climate stress. For example, coral embryos can be edited to carry heat-tolerant genes from hardier species, giving reefs a fighting chance as oceans warm. The idea is that the same toolbox can serve both ancient dreams and urgent emergencies. Now let's move to the next takeaway. Takeaway 8. Playing God or fixing our mess. Critics tell Beth Shapiro that resurrecting species is arrogant and dangerous. She responds that humans have always shaped nature by hunting, farming, and moving animals around. Choosing to do nothing is still a choice, and it comes with the cost of rising extinctions. She argues that targeted edits can repair damage we caused, such as making Hawaiian honeycreeper birds immune to malaria that arrived with mosquitoes brought by ships. Joe worries about crude early experiments, and Beth agrees that strict safety rules are needed while the science matures. They both note that countries like China are pushing ahead, so refusing to explore gene rescue could leave others to set the standards. For example, if coral bleaching wipes out reefs, the fishing economies of entire nations will collapse, which shows the moral weight of inaction. The audience is left to ask whether fear of the tool is greater than the danger it could solve. Now let's move to the next takeaway. Takeaway 9. Fieldwork tales and Bigfoot fails. Beth Shapiro's career is not all microscopes. She tells Joe about a Siberian helicopter that refused to start, endless clouds of mosquitoes that forced her team to eat wearing netting, and trading cheese with reindeer herders who appeared out of nowhere carrying rifles. She laughs about a man who mailed her chunks of pink insulation claiming Bigfoot had peed on them. DNA proved it was human and slightly moldy. Field crews sometimes celebrate successes by sipping medical ethanol because vodka is too heavy to fly in. Joe says that makes her an action hero scientist, and Beth admits the danger is real, but the reward of new knowledge is worth it. For example, one frigid dig produced a tiny shard of finger bone that changed textbooks forever when it became the first Denisovan sample. These stories balance the dry lab talk with adventure and humor. Now let's move to the last takeaway. Takeaway 10. The next chapter of evolution. Beth Shapiro ends by saying, evolution will no longer be blind because humans now steer it whether through pollution or precision edits. She doubts the future will produce a uniform superhuman because tastes and needs keep shifting. If everyone engineered tall blonde children, the dating market would eventually prize a different look, proving diversity always finds a way. She predicts that in 100 years, natural births with random genes might be considered quaint, like riding a horse to work. Joe is both excited and nervous about that vision, but Beth counters that ethics and science can grow together. For example, early heart transplants were once seen as monstrous, yet are routine, now saving countless lives. The show closes on the idea that knowledge is power, and refusing to learn is the riskiest gamble of all because the planet will change with or without our guidance. Viewers are invited to stay curious since the DNA under their own skin still has many more secrets to reveal. Here is a brief introduction about Beth Shapiro. Beth Shapiro is an evolutionary molecular biologist and the chief science officer at Colossal Biosciences. She specializes in ancient DNA and de-extinction research and is the author of the book, Life as We Made It. Thank you for watching. If you'd like to support this channel, hit the thanks button below. It really helps us keep going. If you enjoyed this summary, please leave a like and share it in your WhatsApp groups. To join discussion about this video, drop a comment below. And for more videos like this, hit the subscribe button below.